Hey guys, so we are finally back with the final video of American Horror Story Double Feature Season 10, as well as this is gonna be an overall talk about what did I think about the season and what I think future seasons might be like. We'll make some small prediction, but this will be the final video. Now this will be breaking down season 10 part 1 and 2, Red Tide and Death Valley. So roll the opening credits. Let's watch part 2, Death Valley's opening credits. Roll it. So guys, coming into the season when it was aired on August 25th this year, 2021, the first thing that I thought in my head about this season was like, what ties in that they were going to have, because since they said that this season it was going to be something like never before, since even the name itself, the title that they gave it was called Double Feature. Now we know that when it comes to something double feature, it may not be the same thing, but it will be something back to back, but it has a connection, which is what Ryan Murphy said, right? So from the first episode to the 6th episode was Red Tide, and then from the 7th episode to the 10th episode, which was Death Valley. Now one thing I could say is that I had to rewatch the entire season again, and this time I could comfortably say Red Tide was better than Death Valley, but Death Valley had the best scenery, cinematics when it comes to the black and white contrast that it had playing back in the day. So Red Tide, one thing that I feel as if that was good about it is that we had some strong characters like Macaulay Culkin's character, what's her name, Billy Lord. We didn't see too much of her character. That's another downfall about the season. I wish we could have seen more of Tuberculosis Karen, due to the fact that we didn't see that much from her. You know, we only had a couple of episodes of her. Some of the highlight villains I think that was like very fleshed out was Black Noir, which played the woman that played what's her name in From Coven, Murder Snow. Francis Conroy. Now I remember. And friend Ridrock as well as Leslie Grossman did a phenomenal job. I think when it comes to the strong point of the season overall, I think Red Tide had that, perfectly. They had the characters, they even had like how people were putting it together, but some of the tie-in that they said that was going to have a connection to it, they never explained it like that, because I feel as if the connection that they say they were trying to make from Red Tide to Death Valley, I thought that they were going to use either the pills, which was the black pills that was basically introduced to us, that the government, we know that the chemist, we never saw the chemist in the part 2 of the episode of the season, which was Death Valley, because we know that the nurse as well as the scientist, played by Angelica Ross, they said that she worked for the government, so I would assume that we was gonna get more backstory on her. They never came back that up again, like at the last episode, which was, I think it was called Gaslight, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, you guys could correct me on that. But I feel as if they could have flushed things out more to make more sense. But I think episode 5, as well as, the last episode was called Winter Kills, which basically, I felt very bad in episode Gaslight for Lily Rabe's character, which, it's sad that to see her turn to one of those pale creatures. But that's another thing, like, we never got the connection between the pale creatures as well as the aliens. Like, how are they coexist, since they said they may have even on the promotional, when they were doing the trailer, they had like the aliens as well as those pale creatures were basically fighting each other, and at a point they saw that one of them was holding each other, and the king is like, it was like some Frankenstein, I created a monster type thing. But they never gave us like more understanding of why things were happening the way. But if I come down to the names, so we know that the first episode was called Cape Feared. Second episode was if I go back to the names, then I could remember them better. But I know that each episode of Red Tide was very good, until they got to like the end, which was Winter Kills, where we got a little glimpse of like they were giving like apocalypse tease, because everybody was fighting each other and killing each other, because Angelica Ross' character, where she was able to create a pill where people were keep fighting at the same time. So those are all the names of the and even Dennis O'Hare's character, they never gave us more backstory. But I think Mickey, Evan Peters, Francis Conroy, they had like an amazing flushed out character. That musician girl, which was the daughter of friend Rick Roth's character, Henry, she was just crazy to me. That's what I could say, But some characters, I think in the first half, you felt for those characters, especially Lily Rabe's character, because she had nothing to do with it. She was just trying to come into the town just to, start over so she could get like fresh ideas, and it ended up being that she became a pale creature because for some reason she lacks the intelligence nor the talent to like be one of those great ones that when they take the pills they could amplify their talent. I felt very bad because at the end she almost ate her child. Now switching on to like part 2, where we started seeing in Death Valley after we saw Winter Kills. The first episode of Death Valley, which is called Take Me to Your Leader, was a amazing opening shot. Like when I first saw the part 2 episode, I just fell in love with the first part. Besides those douche college kids, Ivy Leagues, but like the back in the day, showing like the backstory back in the day where it had like Dwight Eisenhower and Mimi Eisenhower, and how they use real world things to connect to what was going on, and how certain things that the government do basically make the people basically sign a deal, where that's how you see that Area 51 came to be, because they signed a treaty. Now the people that we had Sarah Paulson play as Mimi Eisenhower, Nell McGowan played as Dwight, Kira Berger, Neil, Rachel, Lily Ray, Rebecca, Angelica Ross, Leslie Grossman, and Cody Fern. Now, I think the most interesting person that we had was Cody Fern's character, as well as Angelica Ross' character, which was called Theta, where her job alone, as well as Calico, were basically producing those future babies by using the human body as a host. So that way, like I said before in my previous episodes when I was reviewing them, I feel that those things remind me of the face huggers from Alien, where they could just impregnate anybody. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. As long as they have a source of nutrients, they could just keep growing until like they pop out the person's chest. Well, in their case, they basically made the guys gave birth in order for the aliens to flourish, but at the end they use one of the Ivy League kids' bodies to basically become like a breathing machine, where they could just keep giving birth. And even in the sentence that they said, like, even if she were to die, she could still produce more babies for them to make the perfect being hybrid. After 60 years of just researching and using people to create things. And that's another sad situation, was that Dwight Eisenhower basically sacrificed the whole human being on a silver platter just to get technology. So we basically, and another thing I wanted to point out, it's like we basically knew how Miss Mead in a weird way is created because of the technology. Like, because of the deal, Michael Langdon, let's say in season 8, benefited from having the government basically use 5,000 people to basically create more aliens. Miss Mead, in the, I would say in 2021, how they said it, 2021, which is also the year when Michael Langdon basically grew overnight and started planning to take over the world. That year also, that's when they gave birth to the Perfect Specimen. So that's another thing. I would have thought that the Perfect Specimen had something to do with the Alpha as well, because like I said, since they managed to bring out so many different other ideas, I think they left a lot of plot holes open, a lot of missing opportunities. Like I said, the season was, I would say it was okay. Like part 1 was better than part 2, but part 2 had like more, it could have been more heavier. And I feel like because they try to flush out more characters in part 1, which they did 1 hour episode where they basically flush out more characters, which episode Gaslight did. Now, another prediction I had after rewatching all the season, those babies that they were killing due to the fact that they were not perfect yet, I think the tank that they put them in to cut their necks or throats of those unperfect specimen of the hybrids, you saw that the chemical water was blue, which eventually the blue was merged with their bloods, and I think that's why you end up getting the red tide in the first place, because that was another factor that was playing in my head as well. So having that as a idea, I even thought that they were going to connect Asylum, because since this is not the first time we heard of aliens, I really thought they were bringing Asylum into this season, because the moment I saw that they were using aliens, I'm like, yes, let's see if they're gonna add or connect the aliens to Asylum, which the version of aliens that we're seeing here is completely different from how we saw in Asylum, because the aliens in Asylum basically were like protectors, I would say guardians, like in case people really needed them, they could have just, help out. And even in Asylum from Apocalypse, we also saw that they had like those type of cubes that the people were eating in, like those big laboratories where they had all those pregnant people. That also, like, this part 2, Death Valley basically paid homage to some seasons, like the cubes and how they use that as nutrients only. That gave me so much Apocalypse tease. Another tease that I wish they did, but they could have expanded the season even more, like having 12 episodes, where they could have had 6 episodes for one, 6 episodes for the other one. That way everything could have flushed out. But I guess due to the whole pandemic, I felt like this season was kind of rushed. I felt part 2 was more rushed. Overall, like I said, guys, this season was, the way they were hyping it up, I feel as if part 2 kind of had like a mixed bag, but part 1 started very strong, but the ending was just iffy, because they said that this would have connected to part 2. Now I'm thinking that because of the baby that was born, and Angelica Ross' character, the chemist, said that she was planning to create more different pills. Like one of the pills she was planning to make was to make the baby live forever or something like that. Now, like I said, overall, I feel as if my interpretation of the season was that the pills were created due to the fact of the hybrids of the aliens were basically created due to the fact that those baby unspecimens were created in order to I guess create those pills out of the unborn specimens, the perfect specimens. So all these perfect unspecimens created those pills out of them, and that's how they were able to spread it around. I guess the chemist and the things, when she was moving in and out, when she first got to the province town. So when she got to the province town, we saw that she had like these other like big containers to open up her lab and the place that she was going to be in. So I'm thinking that each people that's like practicing like the experiments of like creating those black pills, I think that either Theta or Calico basically gave those scientists a bit of the baby, the unborn perfect hybrids, one of those babies to the scientists, so that way they could dissect their blood, so that way they could create the those pills, because the hybrid has a part of human as well as the alien. So due to their like their intellect, the baby could basically be used for like to unlock the brains, because they're a mix of both human and alien. So I think that's why I could say that in part 1, that's why we could see in the Red Tide that this is how the people could able to get amplified, because those pills were made out of not only the aliens, but it's also made out of human DNA as well. So that's why it's able to amplify the human body, because it was originally created from a human body but has alien DNA in it as well. So that's what I got from part 2. So if you end up watching the season backwards, you might see what I'm trying to say. If you watch Red Tide second and you watch You watch what's his name? You watch Red Tide second, and then you watch Death Valley first. You might see the ending of the Red Tide and then the ending of Death Valley. If you watch the ending of Death Valley first and then you start watching Red Tide, you might say that it's like a start over. So instead of them finish finding the perfect specimen, they finish finding it, and then they move to Provincetown to develop more of those perfect beings. Because if they say Angelica Ross' character was like, that's another thing. I feel as if that Angelica Ross' character, Theta, in part 2, I think she recreated herself, or she basically moved her consciousness to like a perfect specimen, because the body that she had, like one side of her eyes was like gouged out and then big like the aliens. So for her to, like, I would say, blend in, because if you think about it, all those babies that are now being born, they have perfect eyes. So as they grow, it's gonna shape even more like humans. So I believe that and we even saw that in part 2 when the alien just kept popping the people's head, but once she got to like Mimi Eisenhower or any other person that's being controlled, she could just switch their she could just switch the consciousness or whatever part of the body that she was controlling. So that's another thing I got from the season overall. If you watch the season backward, like I told you guys, you might see that the ending of Death Valley is like a start for Red Tide. So the season is like backwards instead of forward. Now, another thing, guys, where do I think this season fits in when it comes to rating each season? So now we know that in Murder House we had the ghosts, we had the whole haunted house and staying in the premises, and from then we had the Antichrist thing being born at the end of the season. And Asylum, it was a mixed bag because we had aliens. We had the aliens at season 2 remind me of angels instead of the aliens, because they could give life or help people get close to death. In Coven, we were dealing with the Salem witch trials as well as finding the new Supreme, like I told you guys. So, and then, you know, Freak Show had like a connection to Asylum as well because of Pepper and other characters that escaped the Freak Show in the 1950s. And then we jumped to Hotel, which I even thought Hotel was gonna have a connection to Red Tide. The moment I saw that they were like drinking blood or anything, I thought of Lady Gaga's character. Roanoke could also be connected to Coven as well as other season, because it's like was very different from anything else they did. And then Cult, I say Cult is probably, it's good, but it was too politically charged. And then we lead on to like Apocalypse, which they made a different doors open, especially like talking about the Alpha, and as well as Coven and Murder House ties in. 1984 was just a fun ride, you know, it wasn't too crazy serious, but it also paid homage to the other season. And then we got to currently 10th season, which is double feature. So I believe double feature, for my rating, I feel as if it sits slightly above season 10. It sits slightly above the season 9, but I feel as if right now I would have to just place it as number I would place it not too high, but I would say probably the lowest so far, but I will rank it as number 8 for season rating. And another thing that I'm gonna say is my prediction for other seasons. You know, I wish we had sirens for this season because they had the whole province thing that was going on. Other seasons that I might think that they should, you know, definitely check out is we could see season like 11 or season 12 or even 13 because it's renewed for 3 seasons more. I would love to see them do something on a cruise or even something that deals with, you know, the Mayflower, because they had a lot of Provincetown and the season, because the town itself is like a Provincetown area. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, you know, what would the mermaids be like, you know, since we never got that type of mythological creature at all. And another thing that I wish that they could have done, because after all the seasons, I feel now due to the fact that they did aliens, it kind of interrupt the past, how the aliens should have been introduced, you know. But I hope that the aliens that they basically shown for Asylum could be considered as angels instead of aliens, because they gave us a glimpse of angels and Apocalypse, but you know, it wasn't, it was just a dream or a glimpse of what they thought Mallory was going to be. But you know, we have orphanage, fairy tale, war, or cruise. I think we've seen war in part of the season, but I'm not sure. The war could be connected to Asylum because Dr. Orden, which is a Nazi, could dealt with like the experimental part of the war part, you know, chemical warfare. But like I said, guys, this was my overall look on the season and some things that stood up to me and that I feel as if not a lot of people did talk about, especially the connection that I feel as if the baby's specimen were basically sacrificed in order for them to create those pills that we see. So the unperfect specimen became the pills. So that's my belief or prediction of it. Like I said, guys, make sure you guys like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely see you guys in future videos. Bye bye for now.